Good morning, welcome back to Hammond's Upholstery. It's a lovely day out here, but we're inside, so we've got work to be getting on with. Hopefully just some little jobs before we finish up for a short break at the end of this week. So let's have a walk through and see what we've got going on. There's Taka sat in the van, his favourite place. He loves it in there. Wish he'd spend a little more time out of it with me. Right, anyway, so we've got 4 dining chairs here. The customers stripped the legs on them, hence the reason why they're already prepped. We've got to put new webbing seats in them, new foam in them, but they'll be very nice when they're done. Now this has been here a little while. I need to get this done, this rocker chair, as I said always, but unfortunately we've had these pads come in for a chiropractor in town here, so these will be what I'm on with first today. Get these recovered. There's some holes in them for the head there. I was hoping to get on with these dining chairs, but I need to get the chiropractor stuff done first, so they can get their consultation rooms back in. This is a leather recliner. I'm sorry, but I didn't show you myself upholstering this one. I just needed to get it done and out of the way, so there you go, leather recliner, that's been done. So we've got these cushions as well, 2 cushions here. It's going to be in the check that's on top. I've made a start on them, and we've got the foams cut for the chair there, and we've got a pair of deck chairs that need the seats replacing on. This is the canvas or exterior fabric that's going to be going on them. So like I say, I need to get on with these chiropractic benches first. I've got the vinyl and the cutting table, so I'll just get them done and out of the way, and then I'll get back to you when we get to the dining chairs here. They're far more interesting and a nicer product, so we'll be back relatively soon. But like I say, just get these chiropractic benches done off camera, and then we'll be back with the dining chairs. There's a couple of stool tops as well that have just been, orders been placed that I need to get done, so we'll be back soon. Okay, so intentions were to show you these dining chairs here next, but unfortunately I've got a stool order that I need to get done. The stools are there. Okay, 3 stools in black, so I need to get them done first. You've seen me do them plenty of times, and there's a whole video regarding doing stool tops, so if you'd like to see that, that's on my other content. I believe it was the very first post I put on YouTube, but there you go. So I'm going to get the stool done, and then I can get back on with these chairs. The chiropractor benches that were over there on that bench have been done and gone, and the leather chair that was over my shoulder here under the blankets has been collected. So a bit hectic, trying to get some last minute bits done before I take a short break, but I will be back very shortly with you, and we will get on with these chairs behind me. But let's get on with the stool tops and get them done so we can crack on with these chairs. that's the stool tops cut and sewn. And we'll put the covers on and get them packed off and ready to go. Like I said, there is a video that goes into more depth on the stool top, so check that out in the history. I think it's the first video that I logged. So I'll just get these done and then I'll get back to you when we can get on with the dining chairs that I want to show you. Okay. Right, last it's time to get on with these dining chairs over my shoulder. Got one to finish foaming up and lux bonding, so that's the last of the carvers, and then we'll do the cover on it. So let's crack on, get the foam and lux bond on this, and then we can look at cutting the fabric, which is on the cutting table, to get these covered. Hopefully they'll be done today. So the compressor's finished charging, so we'll crack on with this. Fortunately, with these carvers in singles, which you can just see over there, the seat sizes and foams are the same size, and we haven't got any cutouts to go round the arms. A lot of them, the arms would come into the seat, so we'd have to cut around that, but not in this case. They've got a beautiful, well-made sprung unit in them. These aren't going to wear out in a hurry. They're going to last the customer a good few years, hence another reason it's worth recovering, re-upholstering these. So I'll just grab a foam and we'll get on with getting this foamed up and lux bonded. So we're trying to emulate, duplicate, copy, however you want to put it. These chairs were done originally for the customer. They had a 2-inch foam with the edges that was square but folded over. I'll explain that a little better in a second. Hopefully you'll be able to see that. There wasn't any additional foam in the seat here. We're not going to put that in because this foam's higher density than what there was originally, so they're going to feel firmer anyway. And we're going to get the dome by how we staple the foam off. So let's get on with this. So place the foam on, and I'm going to start with the back edge. You won't be able to see what I'm doing. I traditionally start with the back edge, so just going to fold this foam underneath. You'll see when I get to the front edge more what I mean. Right, that's the back edge on. The foam looks oversized, it's overhanging the edge at the moment, but that's because how we're going to staple the foam on, we need that little bit extra added on. So when I say we're folding the edge over, I'm going to take the bottom edge of the foam here and roll it back on itself, and I'm going to staple the foam down through the top edge. So I start with the corner, fold that under. Got to fold it under on the front edge and the side edge on the corner at the same time, and just clip it through the top edge here. Hopefully you can see that. Do the same with the opposite corner. Why am I starting from the corners and not the middle? Because we want to make sure the foam is on even. So as you can see here, I'm just gripping it with my hand, folding this foam underneath this bottom edge of the foam under, and I'm stapling through the top edge. That's going to give us a nice round edge to the foam, but also firm because it's got the compacted foam underneath it. You could do it by shaping the foam with your knife, cutting some foam off, but in doing that you're taking out some of the foam material that is supporting the edge and giving it a firmer edge. Traditionally, chairs would have had what was called a rolled edge or a stitched edge in them, which would have been very firm underneath it there, and this sort of mimics that a little bit. You want the foam to be firmer, denser over the wood, because it gives you more cushioning for your legs. Right, so that's that stapled around that top edge. So we've got the dome here because we've got this rolled edge. So just take a bit of our polyester fibre. Again, this is quite a heavy fibre that we're using. Lay that on, make our cuts from the centre of the seat to the corner of the leg. Same process that we do this with the fibre, the fabric, everything. Is to give us maximum salvage on each side of the leg to be able to fold it round. A little bit of the fibre we don't need there, each one to tear that off. Right, the fibre I'm stapling onto the edge of the timber before the recess that the fabric goes into on this particular chair. I'll try to show you that better here. So we have the foam that's on the top of this rail, this seat rail. We have a portion of the seat rail here that is unpolished that you can see. That's what I'm stapling this Lux Bond to, this edge. The fabric then comes over and gets stapled in this recess here on this particular chair, and then a single piece of piping gets hammered into this recess and fixed in. Pretty similar on a lot of chairs. If you imagine just taking this away, and then you have this rail here that the fabric gets stapled up to. So, but in this particular case, it's a recess for the fabric to go into, and I've just felt a staple that my colleague had missed when ripping it up. Don't want that to bite my fingers. So I'm going to pull this to the corner. I'm pulling imaginary a line between the back leg and where the front leg is diagonally. That's the way that I'm pull everything on this, because we're trying to get tension in all directions equal, especially with the fabric that we're going to be using on these chairs, because it's a stripe. So we want to keep the stripe straight from back to front and side to side, but with a nice natural looking curve in it. Right, so I've just made a cut around the arm, pull this fibre down the side of the arm. Again here. Right. So relatively quick, straightforward to do. But like everything, when you've been doing it a little bit of while, it's easy. If you're having a go at this at home, take your time, get it right first time, because it all has an impact on the finished product. If this is lumpy, bumpy or loose or anything like that, it all impacts on your fabric that you're putting in your top cover. Especially as this is a stripe, it's even more obvious when things aren't as how they should be. So that's the Lux Bond on. I'm going to trim off the salvage by running my scissors along that recess. We don't need the Lux Bond to go into that recess because all that will do is make it more difficult to get our fabric and piping in. You have to bear in mind that not only is the fabric going in there, we're going to have to put a piping in there, so we want it to be clear to be able to get the piping in there. This customer's had these chairs a little while now. They're obviously expensive chairs when she purchased them. I believe she purchased them relatively local to us here. So that's the seat stuffed up. Just going to put a tape measure across it, so I can get some measurements for the top cover. Pad and pen to hand. Measurement back to front, allowing a little bit of salvage to work with. We've got plenty of fabric, so let's not make life difficult for myself. So it's 28 inches front to back, side to side. Hopefully is around the 28 inches, 28 and a half, because that'll be half a width of fabric. So again, yeah, I'm just going to be able to cut that half a width of fabric. So let's take a look at the fabric and get the covers cut for all these chairs. The seats are all the same size in this particular one, regardless of them being a carver or a single. Not always the case. Don't take it for granted. Sometimes the carvers are bigger. So be wary of that. If you're cutting your fabric, you don't want to find yourself having cut it short on the fabric, and there you go. You may even have to order more fabric at that point. So just bear that in mind. Let's spin the camera around and cut the fabric. So this is the fabric we're going to be using on these chairs. It's a fairly traditional style of fabric on these chairs. This one's from Warwick. It's mailing in the champagne colourway, just in case for your reference. There you go. It reminds me a lot of a Prince of Wales stripe, which we used to put on a lot on these style of dining chairs, but that's getting harder to find now. But this is very nice, and it'll go with the customer's decor. So let's get this marked out and cut. 28 front to back. Like I said, it's half a width of fabric. So we've got plenty of fabric here. This particular fabric doesn't have a pile on it front to back or side to side, so we haven't got to worry about that. But we will make sure that we put all the fabrics on in the same direction, just in case there is a colour variation when it's turned round. It's not uncommon. for that to be the case. So you just need to be aware that that could be the case with this fabric. So I'll just make sure that I mark the front edge on all of them. Let's find the centre where this comes in the pattern. 28.5 is a wide stripe. Yep, so the wide stripe is the centre of the pattern. Again, watch for that sort of thing. Sometimes the patterns are offset to allow for you to be able to join it and continue the pattern left to right. For this particular case, the pattern is just repeated across the roll, and the centre of the pattern is the centre of the roll. Lay the pattern back on. Then I can use this as my guide. The manufacturer of these electric knives, if you could please put a longer lead on it. I will replace the lead myself, but it would be nice if it came from the manufacturer with a lead that's a bit more than 1.5 meters. They're great tools. Been using them for many years. It saves your hands. If you're cutting fabrics all day, 5 days a week, one of the main issues upholsterers suffer with is arthritis in the hands or carpal tunnel, forearm issues. So this helps. So that's number 3. Let's cut these in half. And we have our 6 seats. Right. I'm just going to mark the front edge on these. Be careful with what you mark your fabric with, even on the back, because it could seep through your fabrics. This is fairly safe on this because of the fire retardancy. Back coating is acting as a barrier. So let's just mark the centre line, which is the wide stripe on this one, just for that. So that's these cut. We'll go back to the chair. I need to mark the centre of the back and the front of the seat so it corresponds with this wide stripe through here, and that's the first point. I tack it on the back, pull it towards the front, and then we'll take it from there. We'll do that on a single rather than the carver, just because it's visually easier to see what's going on than work around the arms. So let's spin you around and have a look at this. Right, so like I said, we're going to mark the centre of the seat at the front. Pen mark there. Do the same with the back. Drop my pen. They don't like that. We'll take our fabric. Bearing in mind, remembering the front edge is marked on this, and we've marked the centre of the fabric. Line that up with the mark on the front. Do the same with the back, making sure I've got enough fabric to pull over the front and work with. So couple of staples in the back, centre there in that recess. I'm using my eyes all the time, visually looking at things, and if something doesn't look quite right with me mark, or where this stripe comes on the inside of the back supports and legs, now's the time to adjust it rather than trying to adjust it later. Remove that. So with my hand, pushing down, compressing the foam, pushing the fabric towards the front. I don't want to pull it too tight at this point. I can always make it a little bit tighter. A couple of staples in there. Right. Back of the legs, fold in the fabric diagonally in front of the legs. See if I can show you that a bit better here. So I folded the fabric diagonally in front of the leg there and just tucked the back edge of it down so the leg is holding it. And then I've got to make my cuts, again going from the centre of the seat towards this point here. I'm going to come up a little bit shy, half an inch, quarter of an inch short of that leg, and then I'll fold the fabric either side. So, like I said, cutting the fabric from the centre towards that leg, coming up just a little bit shy. So whether you're cutting the Lux Bond, canvas, whatever, if you go through that process each time, you're going to be more accurate with your cuts in the future. These cuts are very important. If you don't get them in the right place, the fabric could be showing a raw edge, or you not have enough fabric to tuck down, and then you may end up having to replace the fabric because of that. You're certainly going to have to adjust things, and when you've got striped fabric like this, trying to adjust it by pulling the fabric over one way more than the other is not going to work, because the lines are going to show that you've done that wrong. So I'm just going to tuck that fabric down the inside of the leg, right, and fold it back on itself. So I'm folding it back on itself, pulling the fabric down, and again from the centre towards that leg. Staple that off. Same with the other side. When you're pulling the fabric down, you're trying to get an equal tension. So, especially with stripes and checks and things like that, you want the tension that the fabric is under equal in multiple directions. To avoid lumps and bumps in the seats. Because with the stripes, they're very unforgiving. They show up. all sorts of things like that. That and white fabrics are awful to work with. Whites show up lumps and bumps because of shadows they create. So tuck that down the leg, the same as what we've done on the back. Easing it down, pressing down with my hand and pulling slightly towards the back. Staple the two around that leg. That's the worst bit of it done, getting that round the leg. You can maybe be able to see there in video, may not. You'll be able to see where I've stapled. I've stapled here, I've stapled there in the centre and this leg, and it creates this dome that you may be able to see there. I'm not sure, but that will come out when I pull the rest of it down. So I need to pull the rest of it down to create an equal dome there. If you struggle with that, there's nothing wrong with releasing these staples, because I may have pulled it a little bit tight front to back originally. But let's get the front edge done. So the corners. This case I'm pulling from the back leg to the front, but also a little bit of tension side to side. Not too much, because otherwise I will pull this line over and it will create a distorted line. But the tension front to the back is more important in this particular fabric with this stripe on it. It's going to have a single pleat on the front because we've got a square edge. Just do the same on the other side, and hopefully the lines will be in the same place on the corner. So if I've got this right. So if you're thinking of doing this on your dining chairs at home, consider the fabric that you choose to start with. And some lovely fabrics out there. But if you're doing this at home for yourself, I would not recommend you start with a stripe fabric. Right, that staple would just come out there. It does happen at times, they snap. Let's try that again. That's better. Right. So, you can see here we've got a line with a curve coming up to this leg here. Okay, so it's got a nice natural curve going on, which shows the tension that we got from here to here. This is then just filled in really, and that's for the sides. So the next point I'm going to do the fronts to get the tension in front. So I'm just going to pull this fabric round the corner, staple in there, same on the other side. And we're going to put our little pleat in the front edge. So pushing down with the fabric to get the tension in it, fold it under. So we're getting some tension from side to side now. Nice clean pleat that's in line with the leg. Try not to distort the fabric too much. We want to keep these lines straight. Same on the opposite side. edge. So I'm having a little look at this now, see what it's going to look like, how much tension have I got to pull in this fabric front to back to get this nice and straight, this edge nice and straight, and that looks pretty good. So I'm going to start off with the back, finish filling the back in. You can tell you want your curves to be nice and even. You can tell by looking and observing what's going on with the fabric, the weave, the threads. Lovely. Let's do the side. Let's try turning this so you can see a bit better. So the side, I'm just going to ease the fabric over, because I put the tension in it already. And as always, you run out of staples right at the wrong moment. I don't know if you can see that there, but we've got a nice curve here. Let's do the other side. Yeah, so the side's done. Now the front edge. The front edge, I need to be looking down it to see what's going on. I can run my hand over it and I can feel there's a bump. So I'm going to pull this over nice and tight now. If I need to release these two, I may need to, just to make sure that that curve doesn't get too distorted in the center. But I don't think that's going to be an issue with this particular one. There we go. I'm looking at it all the time, looking to see I've got a nice natural curve from here to here. I haven't got the lumps and bumps. Strangely enough, though, with these sorts of fabrics, somebody will probably explain it to me better, but you always get a little bit of tension. I think it's how the fabric's manufactured on these lines. I think it's slightly tighter weave, this fabric, against this one. So I'm not sure, but you'll always get this little bit of a variation there. So I just need to trim this off. As I'm sure you'll have heard me many times before, you need a nice sharp blade. Unfortunately, I seem to have lost my scalpel, so we'll just make sure that our Stanley blade has got a good edge on it. A couple of strokes on it. So this fabric is stapled into a recess here, and then a single piping goes into the recess to hide this. It's a nice way of finishing it, but where I'm cutting the fabric, I'm not cutting it right up against the staples in this recess. I'm cutting it on the bottom edge of the recess. So I've got, well, maybe 3 mil of fabric salvage off of the staples, because we don't want it to pull, the staples to pull through the fabric at this point, because that would be very unhelpful. Right the way around the job. There you have it. So that's the seat upholstered. Look very smart in this fabric, these chairs. I need to do the 6 of them, and then we'll be making a piping to go right the way around. Now the piping I'm going to cut on the bias because it lays nicer in here. Some people may do it to match fabric to get these joins to match, which looks good. I get that, but it does depend a lot on the fabric that you're using. Sometimes the fabric doesn't lay as nicely or doesn't make up piping as well unless it's cut on the bias. So that's a decision I'll look at in a bit. But that's how this seat's been done. 6 to go, and then I can do the piping. So I'll get on with that, and we'll come back to you with the piping in a bit. So I've decided we're going to do the piping on these, on the cutting the fabric on the bias. You'll see what I mean when I turn the camera around. Just so it lays better in the recess, for no other reason than that. So let's have a look. So this is what I mean by cutting the fabric on the bias. I've probably shown you this before, but if you imagine this is the fabric and the stripes go front to back. We're going to cut the fabric on the bias so to make the stripes a diagonal. Hope you can see that there. Yeah, just about. It's not to make the stripes diagonal, it's a consequence of cutting it on the bias. We're cutting it on the bias so the piping lays better in the recess. It's purely for that. It is cosmetic as well, it does give a nice effect, but it's personal. I prefer the fact that the piping lays better, makes up a nicer piping, than cutting it straight across, albeit then I'd be able to match the stripes up on the front of the seat. But I quite like the cross-hatching diagonal style of the stripe, but it gives a better finish, more to the point for me. So let's get this cut. I've cut a few pieces. I folded the fabric to allow me to cut multiple layers in one go. Theoretically, I think you probably use a little bit more fabric cutting out on the bias. That should be enough. There you go. Is the fabric unfolded? Right, so I can sit on the sewing machine, run this up as a single piping, and then I need to trim the salvage off, and we can run that into the recess on the chairs. We'll use a hot melt glue, the best way to attach it. Well, in fact, it's probably the only way to attach it in this particular scenario. So I'll get that sewn back up, and I'll come back to you when we're just about ready to install it on the chairs. So I've cut and sewn up the double piping. That's what single piping. That's what it looks like when it's sewn up. And I've now just got to finish off trimming off this salvage to create this, the piping that's going to go sit in the recess around the chair. So I've just finished cutting that off. And then we can spin you around and show you us installing the piping itself. It's relatively straightforward with the hot melt glue, but we have to start and finish the piping. We don't want raw edges, so we split the piping open. I'll just show you that now. So we split the piping open along the stitching. Bit fiddly. Cut out the washable piping cord and fold the end over in on itself to create a closed end like so. And then we glue that in right the way along this edge. This salvage edge goes into the glue, and then this gives you a nice finished edge. So let's spin the camera around and we can show you, or I can show you doing that. So here we go. We'll start with the side on the dining chair, just simply because it's easier to show you on this. Keep a bit of scrap fabric to hand, clean off the end of the glue gun as we go. I've already opened up that one, so I'm going to put dab of glue on the fabric, fold it back on itself. And then a bit here. Seal that end off. So then we've got a nice sealed end. So I'm just going to run a bead of the glue about 6 inches along that recess at a time, and gently push in the pipe in so the salvage is glued in or pressed into the bead of glue. And just do that right the way around the chair. When I get to the other end, I'm going to have to open up the fabric so I can fold it over and do a nice clean joint. We don't want any raw edges on the fabric. Have to be careful putting the glue in. You want to put enough in to hold the piping in, but not too much that it oozes up the side of the piping, because you're going to need to trim that off if that happens, and that's a bit awkward. But hint, wait till it dries and then cut it off with a Stanley. So I'll just go along this bit and then I'll stand it up and show you what it looks like. Nice set of dining chairs when they're done. We haven't replaced the bottom cloths on them. Here, the customer wanted us to leave the original bottom cloths on because they have a fire label and the original maker's mark on the fire label. She wanted to keep that. For those that aren't watching in the UK, if you decide that you want to give your old furniture to a charity shop, if it's upholstered, they can't take it unless it has the fire labels attached to it because of fire regulations here in the UK. I know that what we're using all meets fire regulations. The foam meets fire regulations. The fabric has been treated with a fire treatment. I'm not even sure if you can still buy upholstery foam in the UK that wouldn't meet fire regulations. A lot of imported furniture doesn't meet fire regulations because they're not. The fire regulations are different in each country, so something to watch out for, certainly in the UK, when you're buying cheap furniture. But the only time you'll ever know is if you have a fire at home, and then it's too late. So anyway, I digress. I just need to close the end of this up so I can trim out a bit of piping. Fold this back, a little bit of glue there just to make sure it stays closed. Create a nice finished end. Trim off any cottons. Last bit of glue around the three sides on this particular chair. Make sure that the piping is right down in the groove, the recess, and that's the three sides done. Just got the back edge to do on that chair. So there you have it. That's the piping inserted in that edge there. Hope you can see that. I've just got the back edge to do, then to repeat that on the other 5 chairs, and then this job's done. So there you go. Bit of a mismatch at the beginning of this week's video, we're sort of finishing up bits and pieces before a short break. So we will be back soon after our holidays with a next upload. But this upload has been mainly about these dining chairs. I think you'll agree they look smashing. I've no doubt the customer's going to be very happy. I hope you've enjoyed watching the video to see what goes on here in the workshop at Hammond's Upholstery. I've enjoyed doing these chairs. There'll be plenty more to come. And please like and subscribe. It means a great deal to us, and we'll keep putting the content out there. So until next time, thank you very much and goodbye. Cheerio.